for teachers and for parents to say, history matters, experience matters, listen to your grandparents, or pay attention in class. And we've dropped the ball largely on that particular project. But it is partly strategic on the part of those who want to destroy any culture's institution. So if you are an enemy of capitalism, well, then you don't want to teach the history of capitalism, because the history of capitalism is a success story, and you are opposed to that. Or you don't want to teach any sort of history of science if you are opposed to science as a materialistic belief system.
I was extraordinarily fortunate to go to the University of Sydney in the 1970s and study some history. There was a man there whose name was Bob Dreyer, I remember it well, and he confronted us. I have no idea to this day what his politics were, none, which is a good thing. But he confronted, as I understood it in my mind, with the reality that Western democratic capitalism had certainly given us a lot of freedoms, but it also, if you like, Western thought had produced two terrible aberrations, one on the left, if you like, one on the right, communism and fascism, which were very, very ugly, and which for me seemed to offer incredible lessons about the wisdom of staying true to the classic Western understanding, I suppose you'd say, of human nature and of the need to manage your checks and balances, which I see as democracy. But you yourself have written about the dangers, I think, or you plainly think we can learn a lot from Nietzsche and other influences producing Nazism.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You see that as valuable.
Yeah, well, first, kudos to your professor at the University of Sydney, who you took a course from him and you didn't know what his politics was. Good for him.
Yeah, no,
and my view on this is that students in their first 2 years of university should be taught by professors, and at the end of their first 2 years, they should have no idea what the professor's politics are. Because students in the first 2 years, they need to absorb a whole lot of material, and they need to be exposed to a wide variety of viewpoints. Now, I think professors should have something to profess, but it's after you've gone through the initial legwork and so on. So one of the things that I can take a certain amount of pride is that I do know half of my students think I'm a socialist, and the other half think that various other parts of the political spectrum. When they take more advanced courses with me, then they come to know. But I think that is still what a large number of well-meaning professors will do. They are still genuinely committed to education, as bad as many of the horror stories are coming out of contemporary universities and so on. But that's what we need to reinvigorate. Now, you mentioned, yes, Nietzsche and the issue of the Nazis, and what can we learn from the 1920s, the Weimar Republic, and the culture that then gave rise to the Nazis. Now, yeah, one of the things is that absolutely everybody needs to know something about Nietzsche. He is the most important philosopher, influence on an enormous variety of thinkers in the 20th century. Atheist and theist, far left, far right, centrist, you name it. Nietzsche has had an influence on those people. And go ahead.
Just a little thing here that I would say. A very good friend of mine, a neighbour, said, people are sensible, we don't need to worry too much about history, they'll find their way through. The point I just wanted to raise was, I think what you're really saying here is an enormously influential thinker, and you're about to sort of demonstrate that had enormous and terrible consequences played out. Ideas really matter. That's just a sort of an injection from me.
Yeah, that's one of the great themes of philosophy education, and should be historical education that feeds into political education as well. So, we think of John Locke and the American Revolution, and the lines are very clear there. Jean-Jacques Rousseau and the French Revolution, the terrible third-generation French revolutionaries were all disciples of Rousseau. Karl Marx, his PhD was in philosophy. He had a whole philosophical system, and the communist revolutions. And now Nietzsche, and this is the provocative